9:45. So I call the meeting to order. We have three commissioners not here tonight: Commissioner Hauser, Commissioner May, and Commissioner Heavenridge. And we have a new commissioner for the city of Cotati. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Is that a good volume? I'm not sure. My name is Katie Duran. I am a Cotati citizen. I am a mama of two. They both go to Thomas Page. And I work for the city of Cotati doing human resources within the city manager's office, as well as a lot of special projects.
Well, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then just to announce that Commissioner Grill from the city of Healdsburg resigned recently, so the city of Healdsburg is in the process of filling that vacancy. Okay, I guess those are the announcements. Moving on to public appearances. This is an opportunity for members of the public who wish to address the commission regarding items not on the agenda. Please come forward and address the commission. We have this microphone down here. Is that one up above available too?
Four to 6 inches. Okay.
Hi, Walt.
Hi. Madam Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. My name is Walt Fraser, and I volunteer with the Sebastopol Library. I'm a member of the Friends of the Library and of the Library Advisory Board, but tonight I am speaking only as an individual library supporter. I would like to ask the Commission to reverse a change in procedure that was instituted without discussion last May. The change removes the ability of local libraries to supplement their individual needs with donated or locally purchased books. At the time the change was announced, the argument was made that the cost of processing and linking locally acquired books was $26 per book, an estimate I believe is very inaccurate, and that accessing only centrally purchased books would be administratively more convenient. First, I take exception to the fact that this procedural change was announced and not proposed, and that local library staff and volunteers were not consulted before this unilateral change in existing library collection policy was instituted. Second, it has been demonstrated that the physical processing of the books can easily be accomplished by volunteers at no cost to the library in about 6 minutes per book. While linking the records to a central database would require time from library staff, I'm told that the per book time would be less than 3 minutes. Third, the centralizing of book acquisitions severs links between individual branches and communities they serve. In the case of Sebastopol, the long-standing relationship between the library branch and the Copperfield's bookstore is a symbiotic one that benefits both parties. Similarly, members of the community donate books daily to the library with the understanding that some can and should be of use to the library branch that they use and support. I suspect the same is true for other branches as well. Finally, the procedural change weakens the connection between the library and the Friends of the Library volunteers by limiting the uses for which donations of books and money could be used. Taking unilateral action may result in administrative efficiency, but taking control from local branches and the volunteers who support them harms rather than benefits the branches and the library as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Walt.
Hi, my name's Joel Newberg, also a friend of the Sebastopol Library, and I just am here to support what Walt said. I'm a librarian, worked at local libraries, various high schools, and we often bought books from Copperfield's occasionally donated books. And I would like to volunteer that if you need copy cataloging done and you're thinking it's going to cost $26 a book, I can do it for half.
Thank you for your comments. And this, of course, is an item that's not on the agenda tonight for discussion, but we'll consider adding it to a future agenda for discussion. Any other members of the public wishing to speak? All right. At this time, the commission is going to recess to a closed session for consideration of appointment of an interim director for the Sonoma County Library. So I estimate about a half an hour, and then we should be back. Thank you. So I will go ahead and get started again. It is 7:20, and the report out from our closed session is that we offered Tracy Gray the position of interim director, and she accepted. So congratulations, Tracy. And is this a good time to talk about salary? So the difference that there was a change in the Brown Act earlier this year, and so salaries are discussed in public. So the recommendation that we received, or I received from our HR manager, Suzanne Silva, was that we would continue Tracy at the current salary she's at. It's the beginning level of the job description. So that would be on track to, I think it's at 6 months that it's reviewed for a possible increase at that point.
Is this on? Yes. The current practice in our agency is to review it at 2,080 service hours.
Okay. So
Since this position at this point is not under contract.
Okay, so is that a year?
Yes, 1 year
okay.
usually.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you, Suzanne. Commissioner Foxon? Oh, 68.
On the current job description.
It is $68.42 an hour.
Yes. However, at this time, she would be eligible for, and I'm not sure if she's been credited for it, but she would be credited to all of the benefits that go under the management plan. So there's some administrative leave, and some of the benefits packages do change. So we would have to put in a change of status to give her those retroactively.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and I'll be signing that when it's ready.
Right. We'll get that ready in the next day or so.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Are there any library advisory boards or friends of the library who wish to make a presentation? See none. Which this does remind me that I believe next month the Cloverdale lab, is that correct, is going to come to, I'm looking at Commissioner Fox, and we talked about having the different labs come to do reports next month. I thought you had said that August was when Cloverdale would come. Do you want to double check on that? Okay. Now we move on to commission and liaison reports. So we'll start down at the far end with Commissioner McKenzie's report.
It's commissioner report, right?
Correct.
Okay. Unfortunately, I got sick last month and had to cancel my vacation to Scotland and England, so I was pretty sad about that, and I missed the lab meeting and I missed the Friends Library meeting. So anyway, back to full strength now. And a report from our lab, though, is that we do have a couple of interested members, so we'll be back to full strength. Hopefully, we're going to do interviews on those very soon. And the lab is planning on doing outreach. They apparently did it on Saturday at Cotati Kids Day, and that was good. And also there's a night scheduled for the farmers market in August, and I'm going to work a little shift there. Second thing, even though I was on vacation, I had an opportunity to ride the SMART train, and after the SMART train ride, which was really fun, it was like, what do we do next? So we decided to go up to Cloverdale, go to the other end of the county, and I visited the Cloverdale branch and got to see the refresh, which was really neat to see. I hadn't been up there, and I really appreciate the time the staff spent with me to kind of show me around. Just as an FYI, because now I'm visiting libraries, because I'm a library commissioner. Last week, Jake and I went over to the UC campus and visited the Bancroft Library to see the special collections on California history, which of course we were not allowed to see because we're only like regular people, but we found out there's all kinds of libraries over there on the Berkeley campus, and one of them, the Moffett Library, has the Free Speech Cafe in it, and it's very cool and has a huge big mural about all the free speech and stuff like that. So anyway, highly recommend as a field trip, if anybody wants to do it, is to go over to the Berkeley campus and check out all the libraries. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Neff?
The Windsor Lab meeting is tomorrow at 5 p.m. The Friends of the Windsor Library are having their board meeting Thursday at noon. And we have like over 1,000 people signed up for the reading club, which for most people would say, oh, but it's Windsor, you know. But it's really good. We have over 1,000.
Great. Commissioner Duran?
I don't have anything to report just yet.
And Commissioner Garcia?
The Santa Rosa Lab will meet on the 26th of this month. And I attended the same meeting along with Chair Helena Whistler and the director regarding Roseland. And I believe we'll have more of an update in the future as to how we're going to proceed. And the meeting included a former supervisor and the vice mayor of Santa Rosa, as well as other concerned people who want to go forward on having a Roseland library. Thank you.
Commissioner Ebright?
I met with Mayor Chris Kersey of the City of Santa Rosa, had a nice discussion about the library. Specifically, topics were the Roseland Library, the status of the director, and leases, and who owned our library buildings, and we came to an understanding of that.
Great. Commissioner Foxen?
Oh, I spent some time doing a couple of webinars and revisiting the CalPERS webinar because I know I didn't catch it all the first time through. So that's been mostly what I've been doing. The lab will be meeting on the third Tuesday of August, and that's it.
Thank you. Before I give any report, I just wanted to remind commissioners about the ethics training for commissioners. Jane Clickman sent an email out to all of us and links to take the training. And just a reminder that unless you renew your training, you would not be able to use any of your commissioner money for professional development. So you have to do that training. And it's fun, really. So my report is somewhat short. The Sebastopol Lab doesn't meet until next month. The Friends book sale in May was a success, and they sold lots of books, and it was well attended. I attended the Foundation Santa Rosa Sonoma County Library Foundation benefit that they worked on with Copperfield's books. and this was with author Frederick Bachman, who wrote Man Called Ove, and this was to talk about his book, his latest book, Beartown, and it was very well attended. It was at the Forum Room at Central Library, and it was really, it was a lovely event, so I enjoyed that very much. All right, and now to the committee reports. The Director's Evaluation Committee. So this committee met this afternoon, and we talked about a number of things, one of which was to go through our previous process and discuss the pros and cons of different aspects of it. This was the first year that we tried a 360 evaluation, and while it wasn't impacting the overall evaluation, it was a test to just see how we could conduct it and what kind of feedback we could get. And we did get responses, and we have come up with some thoughts on how to improve that process in the future. And we've also talked about a proposal that we'll be presenting in writing to the commission on how the committee can operate going forward, but we worked out some of those details on that. That's about it. Is there something I'm forgetting? Okay. So moving on to the Finance Committee report.
Yes, thank you. The Finance Committee met on June 19th in the library conference room. All commissioner committee members and the CFO were present. Acting Director Gray arrived later after she had attended another meeting. I reported the viewing of a CalPERS webinar that same morning, and Commissioners Hauser and Foxen also reported that they had viewed it. The primary issues on this webinar were the expected increases in required contributions to PERS based on actuarial studies of increased life expectancy, as well as higher salaries, earlier retirements, and lower discount rate, or the expected rate of return on CalPERS investments. Various court cases and proposed legislation were also discussed in the webinar. At the committee, we discussed obtaining a consultant's calculation regarding what our CalPERS increases will be, and Ken is going to obtain further information from jurisdictions that have gone this route to get an expert opinion, from very specific information on CalPERS, what the impact will be on us, and he's going to report back to the Finance Committee this month. Discussion ensued about further education of the commission and whether we all should kind of be brought up to speed on CalPERS and the impacts of it. And Ken is also going to look for a local person who could possibly make a presentation to the full commission so we can get more knowledgeable about CalPERS. At our meeting, it was also announced that new officers for the Finance Committee will be selected at our August meeting. We reviewed the monthly reports. Consulting fees exceeded budgeted amounts, but that was a function of timing, as MK Think was paid later because their work was not completed until later. It's my understanding. Per Ken, the amounts paid were not higher than anticipated. It was just paid at different timing. There were no upcoming budget adjustments to discuss other than the funds allocated for the COO position in the 16-17 budget. The Finance Committee is unanimous in support of putting this position on hold. We have that on our agenda tonight. Work on the start of the OPEB ad hoc committee continues. No initial meeting date could be set up the first time we did polling, so a second doodle poll was set up, and Jane was going to make sure that a date was set, and that has happened. Helena and Barbara will be the commissioners on the committee, along with outside assistants and experts in various areas of finance. Recommendations from this committee, the OPEB committee, will be very important with regard to our significant PERS liability, OPEB liability, and its impact on our budget projections. Measure Y Oversight Committee, the members' names have been submitted, and we have it again on our agenda tonight. Per discussion, the committee will organize itself, basically, with staff help from Ken and Jane. Ken suggested that the group meet quarterly. Randall suggested meet more often, at least initially. I think the committee itself is going to have a lot of leeway in how they function. The next Finance Committee will be held Monday, July 17th at 3 p.m. in the conference room. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. And now from the advocates.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Do we know how The Measure Y Oversight Committee will be reporting to the Commission. Will be a standing item. We'll put it on an agenda, and someone from that committee will.
We have a
We'll have
7.2.7 is on Measure
it's
Y
sent out.
oversight.
Okay.
Yeah. So, other questions?
Excuse me. And so you're going to discuss hiring an actuary on PERS? Are you waiting on that till August or?
What came out of the meeting was that Ken was going to check with some of the other jurisdictions who have hired an actuary and see how close, basically whether it made any sense, whether these were much more finely tuned and really different than the internal staff's calculations, and so whether it made sense to actually spend the money, it's a few $1,000s, I believe, to actually hire a consultant to do that. So Ken's going to check, he's in the process of checking with that, is my understanding, and then he's going to talk about it some more at the Finance Committee next month.
Okay, so moving on to the Advocacy Committee.
We were due to meet this afternoon, but due to absences and sickness, I canceled the meeting. I find myself fascinating, but being a lone person in the room, I'm not that fascinating.
All right, thanks. Foundation Liaison.
The chair already mentioned the fundraiser that was held at the Santa Rosa Central Library by the Sonoma County Foundation. And another fundraiser will be on August 3rd, Chocolate and Cinema, Raiders of the Lost Ark at the Rialto. And I'm very pleased that a foundation member, Sonoma County Library Foundation member, will be on the Y Oversight Committee. Thank you.
Okay, so 7.2.5, the Ad Hoc OPEB Retirement Committee meeting. My notes say that the first meeting is on July 18th. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Ken?
Not really. Everybody's responded and says they'll be there.
Okay, great. It'll be a party. So 7.2.6, the Ad Hoc Standard Operating Procedures. This was a workshop that the Commission held on June 17th. It was held in the Central's Forum Room. And shockingly, no members of the public came to hear what we had to say. So we had a 3-hour meeting, and we spent the time talking about the SOPs, and we devised a list of priorities that the Commission wants to focus on. And I just want to check, did people get this list? Okay. It was sent out by Jane, I believe, after she compiled it. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Reese compiled it. Yes. Thank you, Reese. So hopefully all the commissioners received it. You sent it on the library email? Okay. So if you didn't receive it, then we'll have to send it to you again. I don't know if anybody wants to comment on it. The committee itself? Oh, Reese.
The list is not in order of priority. They are a group of priorities. So when you look at it, just know that that's not necessarily the order we're going to be addressing them in.
But the A list is probably the ones that are the top priority. And yeah.
But
right.
within those A, B, and C lists,
it's not in any particular order. It's just how it was. Okay. And so the Standard Operating Procedure Committee is going to get together, and that's 3 of us. It's Commissioner Foxen, Commissioner Hauser, and myself. But Commissioner Hauser has not been available, so we haven't had a chance to meet and regroup and look at that some more. So more on that next month. And that takes us to the Measure Y Oversight Committee. And we have that on our consent calendar to approve tonight. So you'll see a list of the committee members. And I just want to point out one thing, and that is 2 things, really. That Linda Garcia has nominated or is appointing Tom Ford to the committee. So And she had previously been jointly appointing Herman Hernandez along with Commissioner Heavenridge, but she's added Tom Ford. And Tom Ford, for people who don't know, do you want to tell us just a tad about him, Linda?
Tom Ford is the former tax assessor.
Tax
auditor, and that position no longer exists in the county, but when he retired, that's what it was. And he is passionate and supported Measure Y.
And I will meet with you and explain more about committee, Measure Y Oversight Committee, and you'll find somebody to appoint to it too. Do we know when the meeting is? We don't have a meeting set. We just have the names. Okay, right. Okay, so moving on to the commission workshop, I think actually I covered that, and when I was talking about the standard operating procedures. Are there any comments from the public? Any questions about any of these topics that we've just discussed? Commissioner McKenzie?
Oh, just back to the date of the Measure Y Oversight Committee. I mean, what are we going to do to kind of blast off? We're going to send a doodle poll out to everybody, or?
I don't know. Probably. Yeah.
I haven't given much thought to it yet, but we'll be working on it soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Okay. All right. So, is there any other correspondence or press coverage of note? Okay. So now we are come to the consent calendar. We have 9.1, the regular meeting minutes from the June 5th, 2017 meeting. 9.2, announcement of Measure Y Oversight Committee. 9.3, approve renewal of workers' compensation insurance policy. Are there any items on the consent calendar that anybody wishes to remove?
I'd like to pull the work comp item. I have a couple of comments.
Okay. Let's look at the item. So this should go down to action items by motion. Okay. Any other items from the consent calendar? All right. Okay, so these items are approved by consensus. So that's item 9.1 and 9.2. All right, so now we're down to item 10, discussion items, acting director's report.
Okay, just briefly, I wanted to say I'm happy to serve in the capacity of interim library director. A couple notes on the meetings that I've attended. The NorthNet Administrative Council meeting is an annual meeting of the Consortium of Libraries. It was a great opportunity to meet colleagues from the North Bay that meet once a year to talk about the consortium, the role of what we want NorthNet to be, and revolving around shared resources. So we'll continue to discuss things via email with that group. The Department Agency Head Association, the DAHA meeting I attended with the Sonoma County department agency heads, was a great way to meet some of the department agency heads for Sonoma County. Made some contacts, hoping to collaborate with programs and services with those folks. And then I really enjoyed the Los Cien luncheon, attended with Commissioners Garcia and Ebright, and there were probably 200 people there. It was a great opportunity. Heard some wonderful stories, immigration stories. It was very moving. and met a lot of wonderful people in the community at that event. And then if anyone wants more detail to talk about, the biggest project is the relocation of the additional staff to the Roner Park, what we're calling the library headquarters. It's really been a process for the last several weeks, 6-7 weeks, of looking at Central Library and seeing that they're at capacity at Central for staffing, adding all of the new staff in the various departments, and figuring out how we can move more staff to the headquarters in Roner Park. So it was working with OMT, doing space planning analysis and so forth, and then looking at efficiencies and workflow analysis of library operations. For instance, having HR staff and finance staff together because they work in conjunction often, for the director to be there as well. The director signs purchase orders almost daily or a few times a week, so having the ability to be in the same building with the finance staff to avoid delay in signing, those kinds of things. And then looking at the central branch staffing needs and the space that they need. Parking as well in the Roner Park location, there's more free parking. So it was kind of compiling all of the workflow needs and the space planning to move some of the administration, other staff to that location. We're still hoping for an October move, because I know, for instance, materials management, we're hiring a couple extra staff in that department with our large addition of materials budget. We need that staff to do the selecting of the materials, but we don't have space to put them yet, desks and computers and workspaces. So we're hoping we'll have to delay some of the hiring based on the move so that we can have adequate workspace for new hires and existing staff as well. So that's been the big project. And then, like Commissioner Garcia said, the meeting today, Roseland Coalition, and there will be more updates hopefully at the next commission meeting on the Roseland Library. So that's at the top of the project list for me as well.
Any questions? Commissioner McKenzie?
Yeah, the Roner Park lease situation, which I realize you kind of walked in the middle of this, and I fully appreciate all the evaluation and time that you're spent trying to do, basically an assessment of the whole, everything that's going on at Central and where it should be relocated. My feeling is, though, I've managed an organization that was located in two places, and it's complicated. I'm also on another board with two locations, and the management shared between the locations. It's just complicated. There's a lot to it. And my feeling is moving people to another location is one thing, but we're now talking about moving headquarters to another place. And I think anytime headquarters of an organization are being moved, this is a policy. This is a policy that needs to be discussed by the full commission because there are a lot of ramifications to it. So I'd like to see, I don't know where to go with this. I understand you're in negotiations and it's complicated, but we need to really think about what it means to move headquarters of the library system. If anybody should be happy about it, it should be me, because it's Roner Park and it'd be easy for me and all that stuff. But I just feel like there's a lot of implications, a lot of ramifications, and I want everybody to weigh in on it and really understand it, because you are talking about headquarters, correct? And some of the management would still be, at least two of the managers would still be at Central, but everybody else would be in a new location. And that means a lot of things.
I'm not sure what ramifications could you expand on that a
just
little bit?
meeting and working together, and this is a 25-30 minute drive. I mean, when I do it, I mean, it's just getting people together, and I realize there's a lot of communication electronically, but still there's meetings, and there's stuff, and there's, I don't know, meeting the public, and it's Central Library would no longer be the headquarters of the library, and like Reese has got some comments I could say.
Okay, Reese, and then Commissioner Garcia.
It seems to me they're moving the whole management team down there, which makes sense, because then you have all the people who are managing the different aspects of the library, with the exception of the library themselves. And Central is just another branch of the library, like Cloverdale. So Cloverdale doesn't need all the managers and management team up there. You don't need them in Rohnert Park, don't need them anyplace else. So Central is just another branch, as long as we're moving everybody so they can work together and they don't have big, long drives. I think it's okay.
Well, I think actually management's being split, though, because my understanding is the IT and the director, the operations, Keo, and her group are staying in Central. Current plan.
So let me call on Commissioner Garcia, and then Tracy can jump in.
My concern is, how much is this going to cost? Because originally it was a warehouse and 5 staff members. And how many staff members is it? How much is this going to cost extra? And those things are very critical to me, because it's money in its budget. Because it's different to house books than it is to house people.
I believe I just made a quick estimate. I think it's 12 to 15 extra staff that will be moving, and the space that the staff will be moving into our existing office space in there. The additional cost would be, we're hoping to plan a couple meeting room spaces there, which we would be able to have meetings for the administration, for the materials management, for the divisions that will be there, as well as additional workspace. One of the issues with Central being the lead location headquarters, for instance, the April month-long training for all of the new staff, we had to bump all of the branch events out of the forum room. So they had to hold some of the events in the children's room or outside or in other locations of the library. So hopefully with the addition of meeting room space in the new location, we won't have to utilize the forum room, that it could be utilized for more central branch events and programs. So there is some additional cost of that meeting room space, but most of the staff would be in the existing meeting rooms that are in the location. And yes, the IT manager and the IT staff will be staying at Central. Part of the reason is that we have our server room in the Central, and then the division manager of public services, Keo, and some of her staff will be staying at Central because not everyone could fit. So it was having to make the best judgment on which divisions work in a daily capacity with each other and those workflow efficiencies. Because originally, the division manager of materials management, Jamie, would have been there outside of Central. So now facilities manager will also be there at the headquarters. And some of the facilities, for instance, I think I gave the example that if a branch ordered 30 chairs for their branch, it was delivered to Central, and then it was squeezed in the back entrance and then put down the elevator, 3 chairs at a time, and then stored in facilities and then brought up when it was delivered to the branches. So at the new headquarters, the facilities it'll be an easy drop off, no elevators, that kind of thing. So that was facilities. And then just what I've observed over the last 7 months, having to to converse daily with the HR manager and the CFO. So having those, it was a decision on which division managers converse the most on a daily basis. Ideally, it would be at best to be able to, at one time maybe in the future, of having the division manager of public services as well as IT manager in one location as well.
Commissioner Ebright?
When I looked at the plan, it seemed like acting director, now interim director, and staff, this is very much an operational issue, that it's being handled adequately, that budget concerns are taken care of, taken into account, and there was a need with Measure Y to decompress Central. So I'm completely happy with how this is being handled. And again, I think it's very much an operational issue. And I think we have a wonderful operational staff taking care of this for us.
Commissioner Neff?
I don't know. It seems like the director is like running away from the public and hiding in a warehouse. That the role of the director is to have a lot of public meetings with like the county soups and the various town managers and mayors and stuff. And, you know, the headquarters of the library isn't the library, it's this warehouse. And I think just symbolically, I think the director should be at Central upstairs.
Anybody else? Well, I just want to say that I support this plan. I think I don't think the director is running away and hiding from the public. I think the director is relocating, and I just want to point out that the building in Rohnert Park has easy access, probably not only to the freeway, the bus system, and the new SMART train, and on a very, easily accessible street with lots of free parking. So actually, when people come to the Central Library to meet with the director, they have to pay for parking. They won't have to do that at this new location. And it sounds like logistically it makes sense. It's a shame that we don't have room to move IT also at this time, but when we upgrade the computer system, maybe we will. But I fully support this plan. I think it was well thought out. And if you consider the cost of building a few meeting rooms compared to the cost that would have to happen if the basement area of Central were revamped to accommodate staff, I think that you'll find it's not too far off. We might have those exact numbers in the very near future to compare those costs, I'm hoping, so that concern can be put to rest. But this plan has actually been in the works for over a year to relocate, and I think that this is a good example of Director Gray moving forward on things that have been previously planned, and thinking them, even through more thoroughly to see, well, does it make sense to move only part of a staff? So I just want to throw out my opinion, which is that I support it. Commissioner McKenzie?
Yeah, further comment. With all due respect, the lease has been in the works for a long time, but what we were told was this was because there wasn't enough room to do materials management do it well where we are. So that made sense. Moving the trucks down there, that all made sense. Moving the materials around, that all made sense. And again, I really appreciate the thought that went into this, and especially since, Director Gray just walked into the middle of this. But this is not the plan that's been in the works. This is dramatically different. Moving the headquarters, if I can just complete my remarks,
please
and then I'll stop talking. But we do not have 4 people here tonight. We do not have Commissioners Heavenridge, May, Hauser, and then we have an opening thing from open position in Healdsburg. I think this is a dramatic change to the library system. This is not just some staff. This is moving headquarters. We don't really have a fully fleshed out plan. We have some information here. We don't have any information on travel, how many people are going to go back and forth between the branches and how often, what those costs are. As Commissioner Garcia brought up, what are the relocation costs? What are the renovation costs? I just think that this is a huge change to this library, and I'm rather astonished that no one seems to be taken aback that we're moving headquarters, and without taking action as a commission. I can't imagine any other jurisdiction would talk about moving their headquarters without maybe taking a vote on it, have a full-fledged plan, a lot of stuff written out, thinking it through, what the implications are. I'm just shocked. But apparently I'm alone, or Commissioner Neff and I kind of feel the same way. But anyway, I just want to go on record.
All right, I think the only difference with the plan is that the director is going to be moving too. Is that the thing that is shocking to you?
It was materials management, and now it's the director.
No, it was also finance. There was a lot of finance staff that would have been moved there without the CFO under the previous plan.
As far as I can tell, it's because it's Director Gray who's using the words, we're moving headquarters. So it's headquarters. It wasn't headquarters before, and now it's headquarters. That matters.
All right, so it's possible we can have this on for further discussion in August. Is that possible? Okay, with more detail on the financial aspect of it.
Can I add something, because I won't be here at the August meeting?
Please.
So, from an HR perspective, I have a confidential staff. She's not confidential, but she makes discussion about health and benefits discussions. And currently, she doesn't have a confidential work area, and there is no confidential office space in the Central Library where we're located. And my office is pretty much in the thoroughfare of the kids groups and right in the hub of the activity. And my staff is actually not even located, and I'm getting ready to hire an analyst, and we have no room to put her. So while initially I was not excited, for lack of a better word, about relocating, I realized that operationally it is in the best interest of the library and all of our staff that we've hired, over almost 70 staff since I've been here since February, to meet the needs of the opening Mondays and hopefully future service hours for the public, that it would be a good move on behalf of the HR department and other administrative functions to potentially make this move. And I hope that Tracy will be able to come back with working with Dave and be able to get you some more cost figures to support that. We really do need more space for us and the branches. So thank you.
Can I talk next? Because I've worked in several California libraries who have their headquarters aside from any of their branches. And a big district that I worked for in Phoenix, we had this very same problem. We were expanding. And we moved into an office facility. And at that time, we moved the IT services facility. And it was deeply expensive to move that, to provide the redundant power and air conditioning and everything that was necessary. I think that there will come a day when all of our servers are hosted either in the cloud or at an offsite hosting facility. But many libraries, big systems like Orange County, like LA County, LA City, some of the other, San Bernardino County, which is a very rural county, they have their headquarters in one place and then travel between the branches. And this is a very common kind of thing. And I think that when you look at the communication that people need, we have mechanisms like Zoom, where we can have video conferencing over our existing internet infrastructure and so forth. We do it all the time when we have digital branch meetings, when we have varying kinds of meetings where people are not there face to face. They're sitting at their desk in the branch. So I think logistically, this can all be worked out, and it doesn't mean that, Tracy is in her car on the road visiting all these libraries all the time, every day. It's not like, she is sitting upstairs in the Central Library waiting for stuff to happen. So I guess from my perspective, in addition to what Suzanne is saying about the confidential areas, they've got to have privacy. They've got to be able, they're dealing with people's health care concerns. They're dealing with personnel issues that are, very sensitive, and there's no place for that at the Central Library or anywhere else. We're busting out at the seams. So I think this is a good way that Director Gray has tried to pull us all together as much as possible. And I see a time where IT will be there too. It's just a matter of time, really. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Any other comments? Commissioner Garcia?
University of California, the president doesn't sit on a campus. Their offices are in Oakland. And I want to put words into Commissioner McKenzie's mouth, but I believe the concern, so I fully understand administration being someplace else, is the process and just finding out through a weekly report. And again, I don't want to put, my questions have been answered, and they will be answered in August, more specifically the positions, and their office is already there. Great, we don't have to build them, that kind of stuff. So, but I believe it's the process is the issue. That's all.
Commissioner Foxen?
Well, I don't know, but I've been catching pieces of this off and on for the last 2 or 3 months, that more than just the materials part is going over there. There have been things said here and there, and it's absolutely no surprise to me.
Just a second. Did you want to add in?
This button. Yes. One thing I'm hearing from you, Commissioner McKenzie, is that the surprise at the word headquarters. And I wanted to just address that briefly. In our meetings for the past several months, we've been calling it the Rohnert Park space, the Rohnert Park warehouse space. And we just kept calling it those words. And at a recent meeting, we're like, what are we going to call this space? And we came up with the word headquarters. If that's not the right word for this, that's fine. We were just trying to find a name that made sense for what we were envisioning that space to be. I just want to share that.
Well, if I may. Okay, so what Commissioner Garcia just said was kind of got to what I'm saying about the process of this. And what Commissioner Foxen just alluded to, which is she's been picking up pieces of this. Well, we're the commission. We're the policy-making body. Changing headquarters of an organization is a policy that needs to be made by the commission. We represent 11 jurisdictions. And there are just implications for this. This is a gigantic move. This isn't moving some of our personnel to another location. I totally get confidentiality. I totally get smushed up spaces. I totally get room to breathe, whatever. But we do not have a fully fleshed out plan. And it still says in the director's report the possibility of moving. But I'm also kind of sounding like this is a foregone conclusion that was already decided. And we need to approve this. This is not just the lease, but the move of headquarters of most of the management staff, most of it, and yet leaving a pretty good chunk of management staff at least 2 large divisions still at Central Library. So we're not moving all of headquarters, just some of headquarters, and yet the biggest part of headquarters is moving down to a, quote, warehouse space in Rohnert Park. Again, I should be happy about this. I'm not unhappy about it. I understand the issues, but I just feel like this is a major policy change considering all the jurisdictions that we're talking about. And it kind of took on a life of its own, and we haven't approved it. We're kind of hearing about it in bits and pieces, and we need to see the fully fleshed out plan. We've never even seen the space. We haven't gone on a tour. I mean, probably half the people don't even know where it is. This is headquarters. It's just, it needs more approval in my mind. And especially remember, we're short 4 people right now, not even at this meeting.
We're actually, I'm sorry, officially we're short 3 people. So we do have a quorum. We have actually more than a quorum.
I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying these are people who are not weighing in on this because they're not here. They represent Petaluma.
Okay. Well, we are going to put it on the August agenda. Does that meet your approval?
Well, what will be on the August agenda? How much of a plan will we have? And, are we going to vote on it?
Well, I think that the lease has already been approved by the commission back in May 1st. It was approved on May 1st. That lease has not substantially changed since then. Some minor details to make it more legally circumspect. So that was already approved by the commission. The change is that the director was determined that the director and the CFO and some other staff related to some of the new hiring would be moving there. So are you saying that we have to approve, because I don't believe that we approved the fact that we were ever going to rent a building and move staff to it. So your concern is that the director and the CFO are moving? Is that? I'm just trying to understand the concern because I don't share your feelings about this. So is that what your concern is?
I think that moving headquarters of an organization is a policy decision, and we make policy, and we should approve the policy, and we should have a very fleshed out plan with drawings and people and numbers of people and a lot of detail. And this shouldn't be a foregone conclusion. This should be an action that we take deliberately. But I sounds like I'm by myself on this, although again, there are at least 3 active members, long-term members of the commission that are not here tonight to talk about it. They might care about moving headquarters. And then we have a vacant position. We have a brand new person. And there are just a lot of implications to moving headquarters to another location. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm not trying to be critical. I'm not saying we don't need this space. But it's a big deal.
Okay. So Commissioner Neff, you had your hand up.
Well, it's like once a month we get presented with this warehouse plan, and it's a different plan. Okay? Yes, we need a warehouse. Yes, we need facilities in the book coming and going and all that. Yes, we need more space for that. But that should open up some space in the basement, giving us more office space in Central. And so it's like, okay, this group's moving, and now this group's moving, and now this, it just keeps growing and changing and all that. And I don't agree with moving the director down there or calling it headquarters.
I can respond to the basement. So this has been a very time-sensitive plan because the owner of the building signed the lease, I think the middle of May, perhaps. So as Commissioner McKenzie said, for me coming on board right in the midst of it, analyzing the staffing spaces at Central didn't equate to the amount of staff we would have. So there's not enough offices in Central, and it's more difficult to build the office space in Central private offices. So the plan started of, okay, we only have X amount of space in Central. We have this amount of space at the Roner Park location. we started the discussions in OMT of who could move, and it, I think, started with facilities. And then that discussion was the finance department was all going to be there, but the CFO was going to be at Central. So if he had moved to be with his division, then it was the discussion of HR, like what Suzanne said, she's currently on the main floor amongst the Central branch staff. Her additional staff need that privacy. So the one consideration was the basement, but the lower level of Central's not ideal for bringing people in. It's not an ideal, wasn't the most ideal workspace. So we thought, well, and then there was something where HR and financial services share a lot of their files and converse daily regarding payroll issues and CalPERS and time off and all these kinds of things. So then it became, well, would it make more sense that HR was with the financial services division? And then it sort of kind of evolved like that. Well, the director has to sign POs almost daily and time-sensitive materials to get payments made for things. So, and the fact that the director converses verbally almost daily, what I've witnessed over the last 7 years with the HR manager and the CFO. So that was kind of the thought process. And then in the middle of it all was, and I know it was discussed at a couple commission meetings, maybe several months ago, about the archives, and that the lease of the archives ends in 2020. So I think there was some initial thought of moving the archives to the warehouse, but because of the office space at the Roner Park location, that was more ideal for the HR staff, for the CFO, for the administrative staff, and that the possible thought, if we did have to find a location for the archives, the lower level of Central would be more ideal with compact shelving, where it's in close proximity to the history and genealogy manager. So these were all sort of things that were kind of happening very quickly, all while our leasing agent was calling me saying, have you signed the lease yet? Have you signed the lease? And we're trying to develop these plans because once we gave them a preliminary plan of demolition, they were going to start hammering and doing the work. So we've kind of stalled that, and this is why it happened so fast, is we're trying to we don't want the owner to pull out because we've, stalled on this, but we also needed to find, there's not enough space at Central for everybody. So that's sort of where the process sort of happened, and mentioning it in a couple of my weekly updates. And then it is still a work in progress. We met this morning of, what other needs do we have there? But that's sort of the thought process that went into, and like Vicki said, I know Contra Costa County, their headquarters is a different building from the libraries, and the director is out at every branch and can meet at meetings at other branches as needed. And then the parking issue for staff was a big component as well. The city of Santa Rosa only has a certain amount of allotted parking passes for the Fifth Street garage to give us. So if we were to add any more staff at Central, it would be, we don't know if we'd be able to supply them with a parking in the monthly parking structure. So that was also a big issue. And then, like Commissioner Whistler said about meetings, there's 70 free parking spaces at this location. So getting to meetings there, people wouldn't have to pay for parking.
All right, I appreciate, one more comment, and then we do need to move on. This will be on the August agenda. Commissioner Foxen?
Thank you. We have to remember, like Vicki said, other branches have headquarters. They're separate from other libraries. branches have headquarters that are separate from all the other branches. And that Central is just a branch of the library. It has had the capacity to hold the personnel up to this point in time. It no longer does. And what I see us doing, I'm really glad to hear that Ken's going to be with his staff. I mean, that makes sense. We have a CFO down with them instead of up here. But what I hear us doing is going down the same rabbit hole we have gone down before and not trusting our director and the process that she's or he is going through. So that's what I needed to say.
All right, so thank you everybody for your comments. It makes a lively commission meeting when people participate, so I appreciate it. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, and that is any other questions or comments about the monthly activity report, item 10.2.1. Is there anything in particular people want to call out for their groups? Commissioner McKenzie?
Yeah, I had some questions. I was wondering what reactivating the Northwest Refresh project means in terms of dates. And I'm on page 41 of Finance and Facilities. And also reactivated Rohnert Park lease space. Just wondered specifically what that meant.
Facilities manager Tashava, sorry.
No, that's fine. Reactivating those projects where they were dropped off. As far as the Northwest Refresh project goes, we are still at the basic floor plan. We've just decided on which way we want to go with that. So dates won't be available until we actually have an approved set of plans for that refresh project. So, rough estimate, I'd say I would like to see it started at the end of October, because there's some really good lease spaces open right at the end after Halloween. And then the Rohnert Park lease space, that's what I was calling the what is now being called the headquarters. So that was just kind of frozen in time until I came on board. And
So I'm not understanding the reactivation part of that, I guess.
well, just got the process started again where we had left it off. So
Okay, because I thought it was always in process. But
well, not from the facilities point of view. I didn't even know anything about it until I was hired as the manager. Does that make sense? So, any other questions? You're welcome.
Okay, seeing nobody else come forward, let's move on to the director job description. Oh, I'm sorry, skipped the most important part. Okay, item 10.2.2, the monthly financial report.
Begins on page 50 of your packet. And this is the end of May, which the numbers from the end of May, which seems an awful long time ago, because right now the people in finance and HR are deep into year end and trying to get things closed up by this Friday and get everything entered in the system. But anyway, back to May. There are a few things. You can see that our cash balance went down approximately $1.5 million, which it does at this time of year. We'll be getting another influx of tax revenue, property tax revenue, in June. We also received our first sales tax wire transfer at the end of, I think it came in like the 28th of June. I didn't expect it till July, but so.
But you didn't turn it away.
No, we didn't turn it down at all. So that'll be reflected in the June financials also. As you can see, things are pretty normal as far as the month of May goes. The PG&E bill was the only thing over $25,000 threshold. And there was some activity on page 55. You'll see the Measure Y or sales tax fund. And there was some activity during the current month for that, a total of $106,000. There'll be some more things rolling in there for June. There's also some things that won't be happening. The trucks, under machinery and equipment down there, the $135,000, those will not be getting here until, well, we haven't got them yet. So they're going to be in this fiscal year. And things like that. So that's the biggest just delay, and that's all the process of getting bids and purchase orders and everything like that out. But that's all I have for the monthly financial report, unless there's any questions.
All right, seeing no questions, thank you very much, Ken.
This may be a point out of order, but the last discussion and it being on the August agenda, I want to be clear what's expected to be on the August agenda, because
I think I have a good idea if you and Tracy and I can just get together. I think the commissioners are interested in the cost, the overall cost, the moving cost. If there's any way to compare what it might cost to make changes in the basement, speculatively even, versus what it's going to cost to do changes inside the warehouse.
Okay.
I think if that's possible, while you're doing year end.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think, and Tracy, I think you might have some ideas on that, and Commissioner Garcia.
Part of my question was answered already, and that was that there's already offices there. Having moved offices to a warehouse, I know what it takes to build them out. That's answered. A list of the positions would be good, and the rationale has been presented. If there is going to be extensive cost, that I wanted to know about it in terms of building something out. But you say there isn't? This is the old State Farm building, right? No.
I don't know.
Okay. All right.
It's on State Farm Drive. I know that.
Okay. All right. So it's on State Farm Drive. But in any case, that part was answered. I don't need you to do that for me.
All right.
Well, I think there's some architectural drawings, perhaps, that could give a better sense of what is going to be proposed for the inside of the building,
and the big expense will be the furniture. But
that would be
we
an
won't
expense
have
for the
that.
basement too.
Yeah. So there wouldn't be much difference there, but
okay.
So okay, I just wanted to.
Yeah, I think if Commissioner McKenzie, if you have other thoughts on what you want to see.
Well, I really like a fully fleshed out plan with drawings, what it looks like, and who's moving there.
Okay, so we've already kind of said that, what positions are going, a picture of the setup and
all right. Okay. Thank
costs.
You. Yeah.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, we'll put some. I mean, we had $500,000 in this year's budget for this move, fixing up the basement, if anything, and also the additional furniture needed to for staff in each of the branches. So, budget-wise, I think we're fine. I'm always in the meetings. Stepping on the brake underneath the table, when they start talking sometimes, but that's my job. So I think we'll be fine. We'll get an estimate of the furniture. It'll be a very rough estimate, just because we aren't there yet as far as going out for bids or anything. So, okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so now we're at 10.3, the director job description. This is an item on this agenda for discussion to look at the job description, and if there are suggestions to add or change this before it gets considered for permanent posting, which won't happen until after the committee is put together. But Commissioner Garcia?
I would like to see under knowledge of page 59, I think, knowledge of the next to the last, it says working with organized labor groups and labor contracts. I would like to see Sonoma County, California labor contracts or California labor groups and labor contracts added to this knowledge of.
Why? Why?
Because California is different with their laws and with their needs, and other states don't have as stiff a requirement as we do in California.
Well, I'm assuming since we live in California, that would be part of the organized labor groups and labor contracts. I said I assume since we live in California that would be part. Do we have to be that specific? I guess I'm just asking, do we have to be that specific? Since we live in California, you'd assume that they would know the California laws.
I don't want to assume that, and that's why I wanted it written in the job description. Thanks.
So could I make a suggestion? Because it could say working with organized labor groups and labor contracts, but also someplace in the knowledge of would be to at least say knowledge or familiarity with California labor laws and regulations. That way they can have done out-of-state work with unions and labor contracts, but they need to understand or at least be familiar with California labor laws. Does that sound okay?
I would agree with that because having knowledge of the collective bargaining process is different from consulting a labor law attorney, which is probably what you should be doing in any matter.
I'm sorry, say that.
Having knowledge of collective bargaining processes is different than consulting an attorney, and you should have knowledge of the law, but when you're coming down to the nitty-gritty, an attorney should be giving you that final.
Absolutely, but you need to know that
laws
kind of
exist and that you have to refer
Yeah.
to them as
Right.
opposed to just going off on a willy-nilly.
And understand it.
The difference, yes. And California is a much more employee-friendly state than other states. New York, yes, etc.
Any other thoughts? Commissioner Knapp?
I'd like to discuss whether speaking Spanish is a requirement for this job.
I think it could, I don't think we want to make it a requirement, but that it's highly desirable. How's that?
Okay.
Okay. Any other thoughts, or can we move on?
I do have one question. In the minimum qualifications, it does say 6 years of which shall be in administrative positions. Do you see that on the last line?
Uh-huh.
Does that mean, because an administrative position could mean a clerical position, or is the reference there to mean management?
I think it means management.
Okay. Managerial or management, okay. Since I'm changing this.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so now we can take item 9.3 down under action items, approve renewal of workers' compensation insurance policy. Commissioner McKenzie, you asked to have this taken off of consent. Did you want to open up the questions or the discussion?
Yes, my need is to have some clarification about volunteers. On page 10, for example, it does show including volunteers. And I need to know if that's volunteers. Friends of the Library people are also volunteers, and I need to know if they're covered or not, particularly since those of us who went to that All Friends Day had a big issue with it. So I need clarification on that. And then if they're not, I'm wondering why on page 9, the Friends leased space for River Friends and Friends of Petaluma is considered a covered location. So I need to understand that. And thirdly, see that on page 9 of the policy. This would be document 9.3, and then it's 9.3. There's no, I don't know, page 9 is what mine says. Anyway, I mentioned this to Patrick the last time this came up. These two Friends locations are covered, but the Roanoke Park Friends space is not covered. So it needs to be consistent, either all or none. And then also, if the Friends are not covered as volunteers, why are their spaces covered? So I'm confused about what we're doing, and I don't know if any of the other libraries have Friends of the Library space off-site.
You have, the Friends of the Library for Roanoke Park has a off-site, off of Roanoke Park?
A storage area, just like the Friends of Riverdew and Petaluma. It's an off-site. It's basically their extra books and stuff that they don't have room for, and they bring them back for the book sales. And
Thank you.
But there may be other libraries that do it. I don't know. But anyway, Roanoke Park needs to be listed if we're going to cover it. But why are we covering them if we're not covering the Friends as under the work comp insurance while they're in the library? But maybe they are. I don't know.
Well, I do know that the quote that we're going with does include the volunteers, and I would say that the volunteers are Friends because they are volunteers. I cannot answer the question about the third location of the address. I can look into that and find out about that.
Well, there are library volunteers that aren't Friends. And that's what I've been told in the past, is the people who shelf books and so forth in the library as volunteers. That's one group. The Friends of the Library are a separate organization.
Right.
They're their own 501c3s.
If I could, those are great questions. And it was my understanding that since the Friends are a different organizations, that they are not covered under this policy. Now, we can find that out and let you know for sure. And my guess is, and this isn't a good answer, that the property that were covered were probably taken right off our liability insurance and just put here.
Right on there, yeah.
That's a very educated guess, but we'll also find out that for sure.
Right.
Right. Like I said, I brought this up before and it didn't get added, but it needs to be consistent. And it is a funny thing because Friends of the Library are volunteers. They are working in the library. They're doing, library-ish things. But they either need to be covered on this and their spaces or not their spaces. Their spaces shouldn't be covered. It doesn't make any sense.
I agree.
Well, the only reason they wouldn't be covered is if they have a workers' comp insurance under their own.
They do not.
So this would be something that we would vet out and we'll have to bring back. Right.
Okay, please do, because I know there's a lot of concern in the Friends groups about whether they have any coverage or not.
Well, yeah, it's something that I don't know if we have to bring it back to another.
Well, we'll have answers. We'll have answers for you at the August meeting. We just got to clarify it with the insurance agent.
Great, thank you.
I just had a question, Commissioner McKenzie. So if they're volunteering and shelving books, they would be library volunteers. If they're operating a book sale as a Friend, is that what you're going to be clarifying is the difference between if they're operating their bookstore on the premises
Yes, they would be volunteering for the Friends organization.
Okay.
Under that last scenario.
Right. I didn't mean to confuse the issue. I was saying library volunteers, the people who seem to be covered on this, are the people who shelve books and do things like that.
Right, but the Friends have dual.
The Friends work
roles,
within the libraries and, schlep books around.
Right, so they'd be
have
covered
issues.
then.
Well,
sure.
are they, is a question.
No, if they're doing library work, they would be covered. If they're doing Friends work, then that's the question. But as volunteers shelving books, I can't imagine that they're not covered.
Yes, if they're volunteering for the library, they're definitely covered. We have to clarify whether people that are volunteering for the Friends organizations are covered under this, and then make the policy consistent, one way or the other.
Commissioner Foxen.
As far as the space goes, it says leased space used by River Friends, and same with the Petaluma one. Is the space leased by the Friends group, or is it leased by the library?
These,
the Friends groups.
Yeah, these are the Friends groups. And the Roanoke Park one actually is free. It's donated by a storage thing. But you have this exact same issues, which is schlepping stuff back and forth to
The
book
reason I
sales.
wanted clarification is Cloverdale rents a space too. I mean,
Okay.
so, and I don't know how many other libraries do, but I didn't know if that was a space that was leased by the library. So, okay.
Are you saying the Cloverdale Friends have a space? Because then they need to be listed here too. For
Or not.
consistency.
Yeah, or not. It depends on if they're covered or not. I mean,
Okay, so this calls for a motion, though, for us to authorize the director to execute an agreement. So we can do that, and you can come back and clarify questions?
Yep.
Okay.
So we can make a motion.
Okay. Do I have a motion? So the motion is to authorize the library director to execute an agreement for workers' compensation insurance for 2017-2018, not to exceed $272,844 for the policy year July 1st, 2017 through July 1st, 2018. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, it's unanimous with our 3 absences. Okay, so that takes us, thank you very much, Ken. And Suzanne, thank you. So now we're down to action items by motion, which we've already started that. And 11.1 is the election of officers, and this is our time of the year when it's time to elect the chair and the vice chair. Are there any takers? Commissioner Garcia?
I nominate Helena Whistler for another term, so I make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, thank you, I think. So then we have the vice chair position. Do we have a nomination for vice chair?
I nominate Linda Garcia for vice chair.
A second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Other nominations?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, were there?
Are there other nominations? All right, all in favor of Commissioner Garcia for vice chair?
Aye.
Aye. All right, opposed? Abstentions and absences, 3. All right, congratulations. So now we're down to 11.2. This is to postpone the recruitment of the COO position. This is the, and I think you have a handout on this. Did you all get it? Which has a description of the position. And do I have a motion? Commissioner Garcia?
Yeah, so I propose we postpone recruitment of the Chief Operating Officer position.
Second.
Okay. Discussion? Comment? All right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? And absences. All right. So that'll be considered at a later time. Now we have Library Advisory Board appointments.
I recommend that we follow through with the appointment of Tracy Logan to the position on the Hillsborough Library Advisory Board for a term ending June 30th, 2021.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
That was Commissioner McKenzie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. All right, so are there items to include in the commission notes? And the appointment of the interim director. I think we're all a little tired here today.
The Measure Y Oversight Committee names.
Okay. Okay, and I know of a couple of agenda items for future commission meetings. We have the Roanoke Park building move. And I believe there will be an agenda item for the commission to consider the hiring of a consultant. And there was something else. I know. And this actually is not an agenda item, but will we get training on the phone?
Yeah, I'd like to see everybody right here after. I didn't want to take it during the meeting, if that's all right with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should take just a couple minutes.
Okay. Any other thoughts on the agenda for August? Oh, we have Cloverdale Lab coming to make a presentation.
I'll see that they're here.
Okay. Okay. All right, so our next regular meeting is Monday, August 7th, here at 6:30. And I adjourn us at 8:47. And thank you, everybody, very much. Thank you, staff, for always showing up and being there